Johnny Carson was the undisputed master of late-night television, famously keeping every single celebrity guest under his strict control. But what happens when an unstoppable force walks onto the set and completely hijacks the broadcast? Today, we are looking at 8 shocking times guests completely took over The Tonight Show, leaving the king of late night entirely out of his comfort zone. Number 1. Muhammad Ali, the guest who intimidated Johnny Carson.
All right, well, you must have been pretty good because I don't see no marks on you or nothing.
Well, I don't see many marks on you either.
Well, I am pretty good.
In the rigid history of late-night television, there was an unspoken but golden rule. Johnny Carson asked the questions, and the celebrity guest provided the polite answers. Johnny was the meticulous conductor of the program, and everyone else followed his precise rhythm. But when the heavyweight boxing champion of the world, Muhammad Ali, walked onto the stage, all the traditional rules of broadcasting were immediately shattered. Ali did not just appear on the show to be a standard, predictable interviewee. He arrived to completely conquer the studio and the audience. During his legendary and highly anticipated appearances throughout the 1970s, Ali would frequently ignore Carson's carefully prepared questions entirely. Instead, he would take absolute control of the live broadcast. He would stand up from the guest chair, pace around the stage with explosive, unpredictable energy, and speak directly into the studio cameras to deliver his famous rhythmic poetry and bold fight predictions. What made these particular interviews so incredibly shocking for the millions of viewers watching at home was seeing Carson, a man globally famous for his razor-sharp wit and absolute dominance over his set, rendered practically speechless. Ali would continuously and relentlessly tease Johnny, playfully mocking his physical appearance, his golf game, and his conservative suits. He would even challenge the legendary host to impromptu boxing matches right there in front of the roaring live studio audience, forcing Johnny to put up his fists in comedic self-defense. Carson, who usually cut off or mocked guests who tried to steal his spotlight, quickly realized he simply could not tame the incredible, overwhelming force of the champion. He wisely chose to step back, sit behind his desk, and let Ali put on a mesmerizing one-man show. It was an incredibly rare sight for the American public to witness the undisputed king of late night willingly surrender his television throne. Ali demonstrated a level of psychological dominance and natural charisma that proved he was not just a phenomenal athlete, but one of the most brilliant television entertainers of his generation, capable of intellectually sparring with the most experienced broadcaster in the business. Do you think late-night hosts should allow powerful guests to completely hijack their shows, or is it a sign of weakness for a presenter to lose control of the interview? Number 2. Hulk Hogan. When wrestling chaos took over late night,
Down here or any place
Wherever you want. Take my seat, take my desk.
for decades, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was highly famous across America for its incredibly calm, sophisticated, and predictable atmosphere. Johnny meticulously built a pristine, elegant environment where Hollywood royalty, renowned authors, and legendary musicians would sit down and engage in witty, polite conversation. However, that entire sophisticated dynamic was completely shattered in June 1982, when a massive, larger-than-life professional wrestler named Hulk Hogan made his unforgettable debut appearance on the program. At this specific point in television history, professional wrestling was still largely considered a gritty regional attraction, definitely not mainstream Hollywood entertainment fit for a premium network broadcast. But when the towering 6'7", 300-pound powerhouse walked through the iconic curtain, the energy in the NBC studio instantly transformed from a quiet talk show into a wild, unpredictable wrestling arena. Hogan did not just sit down for a standard quiet interview, he brought the absolute chaos and unstoppable frantic energy of Hulkamania directly to Johnny's desk. Towering over the host, Hogan immediately began showcasing his immense physical presence, intensely flexing his famous 24-inch biceps just inches away from Carson's face. Johnny, who usually held all the psychological and physical power in the room, looked genuinely stunned and visibly intimidated by the sheer size, volume, and overwhelming charisma of his guest. Instead of answering traditional questions normally, Hogan cut a loud, high-octane wrestling promo right there on the guest couch. He spoke with the booming, aggressive intensity of a champion about to enter the ring, completely dominating the physical space, dwarfing everyone around him, and turning the highly polished late-night set into his own personal stage. This shocking interview was a monumental turning point in pop culture history. It definitively proved that the loud, theatrical, and completely unhinged world of professional wrestling could successfully invade mainstream television and completely captivate a national audience, leaving even the undisputed king of late night utterly speechless and entirely out of his element. Do you think talk shows lose their journalistic credibility when they abandon serious interviews to feature loud, theatrical spectacles like professional wrestling? Number 3. John Wayne, the shocking, unannounced walk-on.
She lives back east now, but she currently is...
In the highly structured and tightly controlled world of network television, every single second of a broadcast is meticulously planned, scheduled, and rehearsed. There are strict celebrity guest lists, heavy security protocols, and rigid timelines that producers must follow to ensure the program runs perfectly smoothly. However, when you are the biggest, most iconic movie star on the entire planet, those standard television rules simply do not apply to you. Nobody was allowed to interrupt Johnny Carson during his carefully crafted monologues or celebrity interviews without explicit prior permission. But the legendary Western actor John Wayne was not just a regular Hollywood celebrity. He was an absolute titan of American culture. During one of the most unforgettable moments in the long history of The Tonight Show, the Duke completely bypassed all network security, ignored the scheduled run of the show, and simply walked directly onto the stage without any prior warning or announcement. The sheer magnitude of his unexpected physical presence instantly stopped the production in its tracks. Carson, a man famously known for his unflappable composure and absolute control over his studio environment, was genuinely taken aback and visibly stunned by the massive figure suddenly standing right beside his famous wooden desk. The live studio audience immediately erupted into a deafening roar of applause and pure disbelief, fully recognizing they were witnessing a spontaneous, unscripted moment of genuine Hollywood royalty. Wayne did not need a formal introduction or a booked segment to command the absolute attention of millions of viewers. He simply strolled onto the NBC set with his signature undeniable swagger, briefly bantered with a bewildered Johnny Carson, and proved that he could literally walk wherever he pleased. This unscripted interruption permanently solidified his mythical status, demonstrating a level of raw, untouchable star power that completely eclipsed the rigid boundaries of the entertainment industry. Do you believe that mega celebrities should be allowed to bypass standard security and scheduling rules, or does this kind of blatant favoritism show a lack of respect for the television production crew? Number 4. Burt Reynolds, the escalating live TV water fight.
The night we stood here when...
I did, and I poured stuff like this down your thing.
Burt Reynolds and Johnny Carson shared a highly famous and genuine friendship that consistently translated into pure television gold. When Reynolds was the biggest box office star in the entire world during the 1970s, his appearances on The Tonight Show were highly anticipated. The audience always knew they were going to witness two comedic masters simply having a fantastic time together. However, their comfortable dynamic occasionally pushed the strict boundaries of standard broadcasting, leading to one of the most famously chaotic moments in late-night history. During a particularly loose and unscripted interview, Reynolds decided to playfully break the tension by casually flicking a tiny amount of water from his drinking mug directly onto Carson's pristine, tailored suit. In the rigid world of network television, physically messing with the host was strictly forbidden and highly unusual. Carson, never one to back down from a comedic challenge or let a guest completely dominate him on his own stage, immediately retaliated. He grabbed his own glass and threw the water right back into the Hollywood superstar's face. The live studio audience erupted in absolute shock and roaring laughter, as the situation rapidly and completely escalated out of control. It was no longer a sophisticated talk show interview. It had transformed into a wild, physical comedy sketch happening in real time. Reynolds escalated the war by grabbing Johnny's iconic desk mug, while Carson desperately searched for more ammunition. The climax of this shocking and hilarious television chaos occurred when Carson physically grabbed a massive glass pitcher of water hidden behind his desk and mercilessly dumped the entire contents directly over Reynolds' head, completely soaking the famous actor and ruining his expensive wardrobe on national television. It was a legendary moment of unscripted chaos that proved underneath Carson's elegant suits, he was completely willing to abandon all professional decorum. He engaged in a messy, chaotic fight to ensure his show remained the most unpredictable and entertaining hour on television. Do you think unscripted, chaotic physical comedy between a host and a massive celebrity makes for better television than a highly structured, serious promotional interview? Number 5. Lucille Ball, the interview that destroyed her goofy image.
And you can see why I'm taking them home.
Yes, well, I've got plenty of worms at home, and...
Are you sure?
For generations of television viewers, Lucille Ball was the ultimate symbol of physical comedy, a deeply lovable and delightfully clumsy housewife who constantly found herself in ridiculous situations. The American public absolutely adored her iconic, goofy persona from I Love Lucy, fully expecting that exact same wacky energy whenever she appeared on screen. However, when she sat down across from Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show, the audience witnessed a completely different and utterly shocking side of the legendary actress. In reality, Lucille Ball was one of the most powerful, brilliant, and ruthlessly successful studio executives in the entire history of Hollywood. As the pioneering head of Desilu Productions, she was a fiercely intelligent businesswoman who did not have a single ounce of patience for foolishness or trivial Hollywood gossip. During her highly memorable appearances with Carson, she completely abandoned her beloved comedic mask. Instead of delivering silly punchlines, she sat in the guest chair with formidable posture, chain-smoking cigarettes with an intense, intimidating glare, and speaking with a deep voice of absolute authority. She was notoriously tough on interviewers, and Carson was absolutely no exception to her strict standards. If Johnny asked a question she deemed stupid or irrelevant, she would not hesitate to bluntly correct him on national television, effectively putting the undisputed king of late night firmly in his place. She controlled the exact flow and tone of the conversation with an iron grip, refusing to play the part of the foolish clown just to entertain the live studio audience. This stark, jarring contrast between the lovable character people expected and the hardcore, fiercely independent executive sitting on the couch was genuinely shocking to millions of viewers. Her commanding presence forced Carson to abandon his usual playful banter and treat her with the utmost reverence and caution, proving that the real Lucille Ball was far more intimidating than anyone could have ever imagined. Do you think the public unfairly demands that famous comedians must always be funny and cheerful in real life, denying them the right to be completely serious and strictly professional? Number 6. Bette Davis, the legend who terrified Johnny Carson. For decades, Johnny Carson was renowned for his incredible ability to make absolutely anyone feel comfortable on his famous couch, from nervous rookie comedians to the biggest movie stars in the world. He was the undisputed master of charming his guests and keeping the conversation light, funny, and entirely under his control. However, there was one specific Hollywood legend who completely flipped that dynamic and genuinely terrified the king of late night: the incomparable Bette Davis. When the iconic, two-time Academy Award-winning actress walked onto the set of The Tonight Show, the entire atmosphere of the studio instantly shifted. Davis did not care about standard television etiquette, and she certainly had no absolute interest in playing the typical, overly polite celebrity promotional game. She would sit down in the guest chair, immediately light up a cigarette, and look at Carson with a piercing, intimidating glare that could freeze the entire room. Carson later openly admitted that he was incredibly nervous whenever she appeared on the program because she was famously unpredictable, brutally honest, and completely unapologetic. She answered his carefully planned questions with sharp, cutting remarks, never hesitating to speak her absolute mind about the harsh realities of the film industry or her intense dislike for certain Hollywood figures. She dominated the physical space with her constant smoking, using her cigarette as a theatrical prop to dictate the exact pacing and rhythm of the entire interview. If Johnny attempted to steer the conversation into silly territory or make a lighthearted joke at her expense, she would swiftly cut him down with a single devastating look or a sharp, witty comeback that left the live studio audience gasping in absolute shock. Davis forced the most confident broadcaster in television history to sit nervously on the edge of his seat, sweating under the immense pressure of trying to interview a powerful woman who fiercely refused to be managed, intimidated, or controlled by anyone in the entertainment business. Do you think modern talk show hosts are too afraid to interview brutally honest, unfiltered celebrities like Bette Davis, preferring instead to stick to safe, pre-planned promotional scripts? Number 7. Frank Sinatra, the rare appearance ambushed by Don Rickles.
Marco Mangananzo was hurt.
Marco Mangananzo. Throughout the history of American entertainment, Frank Sinatra was notorious for completely avoiding traditional television talk shows. The chairman of the board simply did not need the promotional exposure, and he had absolutely no desire to sit on a couch and answer typical repetitive questions from late-night hosts. So, when Johnny Carson successfully convinced the legendary singer to appear as a guest on The Tonight Show in November 1976, it was treated as an incredibly rare and monumental television event. Carson was highly respectful during the interview, treating Sinatra with the absolute reverence that a global music icon commanded. The conversation was flowing smoothly, with Carson gently asking Sinatra about his romantic life and his personal musical preferences. The studio was completely captivated by the rare intimacy of the moment. However, that quiet, respectful atmosphere was suddenly and hilariously destroyed when the legendary insult comedian Don Rickles completely crashed the set without any prior warning. Rickles, who was famous for his fearless, rapid-fire insults and who shared a deeply loyal friendship with Sinatra, simply walked past the NBC cameras and barged right into the middle of the broadcast. While most people in Hollywood were absolutely terrified of offending Frank Sinatra, Rickles immediately launched into a brutal, non-stop comedic assault against the singer. He aggressively mocked Sinatra's legendary temper, his romantic reputation, and his entourage right to his face, completely hijacking Carson's carefully planned interview. Sinatra, who normally demanded absolute respect from everyone around him, broke down into uncontrollable fits of laughter. The sheer audacity of Rickles interrupting the most important guest in television history and getting away with mercilessly roasting him on national television created one of the most unpredictable and brilliantly chaotic moments Johnny Carson had ever hosted. Do you think unexpected, unscripted guest interruptions make talk shows more entertaining, or is it disrespectful to the main celebrity who was originally booked for the interview? Number 8. Michael Landon, the most heartbreaking Carson interview
of this year. Michael Landon was diagnosed as having inoperable cancer of the pancreas and liver.
For the vast majority of its historic run, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was the ultimate destination for lighthearted entertainment, comedic monologues, and standard celebrity promotional tours. Guests appeared on the famous couch to sell movie tickets, discuss their upcoming television series, or share amusing, highly rehearsed anecdotes. However, on May 9, 1991, the beloved television icon Michael Landon shattered that lighthearted atmosphere to deliver one of the most profoundly moving and sobering moments in the entire history of American broadcasting. Landon, who was universally adored for his wholesome and deeply moral roles on classic shows like Bonanza and Little House on the Prairie, did not visit Johnny to promote a new project. Instead, he made the incredibly brave decision to use his appearance to speak directly to the American public about his recent, highly aggressive pancreatic cancer diagnosis. The tabloid press had been circulating vicious and sensationalized rumors about his rapidly declining health, and Landon wanted to confront the situation with absolute dignity, honesty, and incredible courage. Sitting next to Johnny, who was visibly moved and uncharacteristically serious, Landon openly discussed the harsh realities of his severe medical condition. The usual roaring laughter of the live studio audience was completely replaced by a stunned, heavy, and absolutely respectful silence. Despite the grim nature of his severe illness, Landon remarkably maintained his signature warmth and even cracked a few jokes, demonstrating an unbreakable spirit that deeply touched millions of viewers watching at home. He completely stripped away the artificial glamour of Hollywood, transforming the late-night comedy program into a deeply intimate and vulnerable conversation about human fragility, family, and facing the end of one's journey with grace. It was a completely unprecedented television moment where the immense power of raw, unfiltered human truth completely overshadowed the usual late-night entertainment, leaving an unforgettable and profoundly emotional legacy. Do you think it is appropriate for celebrities to share highly personal and tragic medical news on comedy talk shows, or should those platforms remain strictly dedicated to light-hearted entertainment? If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more. See you in the next one.